Welcome to the Synergy Podcast, the space where we redefine how we move, heal, and experience our bodies. I am Ariana Montanari, yoga synergy teacher, soap maker, beekeeper, and really advocate for a pain-free, pleasure-driven life. In here, we break free from the unspoken rules that tell us how we should look, move, and feel. And through intuitive movement and self-care and deep reconnection with nature, we explore what it truly means to live without tension, pain, or limitations. So whether you're a yogi, a seeker, or simply curious about stepping into a more liberated way of being, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Creating this episode was incredibly intriguing. I had to dig into my National Geographic collection to find two issues that really affected me. One was about the inflammation age, and the other one contained an article titled The New Science of Stress. So in this episode, we will talk about what I have learned from these articles. We will talk about inflammation in the body and how stress affects us and how to deal with it, how to understand these two phenomena a little bit better. Remember, I am just a curious human on the quest for well-being and really, again, understanding our body a little bit better. So I will share what I have learned through my own lenses. Let's start with a question. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say inflammation? We usually give it a negative meaning, right? So in the holistic health world, we do everything to reduce inflammation. If you think of anti-inflammatory diets and pills and supplements. But I learned that the reality is way more complicated than that, because even just the word inflammation is becoming not extensive enough to cover all the diverse aspects of inflammation, the more scientists learn about it. To put it in a very simple way, we actually need inflammation to survive. Our health depends on it. Our immune system relies on inflammation to activate immune response, immunity actions against pathogens. The X factor here is quantity. So when inflammation becomes chronic, it can lead to a whole new level of diseases, like heart disease, depression, Alzheimer's. It could even trigger autoimmune conditions where the immune system attacks the body's own tissues. Reading these articles gave me a deeper perspective on the intricate relationship between the systems in our bodies. And over the past decades, we used to consider each system on its own, like medicine. If you think of, I go to a doctor that would just look at a certain pod, a certain system in my body. But I see that this is changing. We are slowly understanding, we're getting insights on the fact that our body is all connected at a physiological, at a cellular level. Back to inflammation. Let's see. In the article that I read on the National Geographic, Luigi Ferrucci, a geriatrician and epidemiologist, explains how over the span of 25 years, more or less, Church has found more markers to measure inflammation, from 5 or 6 to thousands. So we are gradually understanding the different expressions that inflammation can have in our bodies. Now, let me quote the article. The emerging consensus among scientists is that inflammation isn't inherently bad or good. We just need the right amount of it, depending on the situation. It is not something then we want to eliminate. It is something we want to learn how to control. Interesting, right? For me, it was groundbreaking to read this because I never thought of inflammation of something that we actually need. But to read this, it's not bad or good. We just need it in the right amount. It was like, oh, yes. And that comes again to balance in our lives, right? To understand what inflammation is doing and what it wants to tell us. So in the article then they go on and see the different practices that are common to fight inflammation. So what about cold plunges, sauna, or plasma injections? These are popular ways to fight inflammation. And when it comes to cold plunges, scientists have not yet succeeded in, say, fully explaining or linking the benefits of cold plunges and inflammatory processes. They see that there is something there, but they have not really managed to make the connection. On the other hand, sauna and heat therapy could address inflammation and decrease the risk for cardiovascular diseases. I made a study in Finland with about 12,000 people. And that was easier to prove compared to cold plunges. Something new to me were these plasma injections. So I'll explain it to you as, again, not a doctor, so just as a curious human. What happens is, this is a medical procedure, of course, and you get injected platelet-rich plasma, PRP, which is basically your own blood, filtered out of red blood cells. And as far as I understand, the medical stuff creates a different composition according to the type of treatment. This is still very new, but it's so fascinating that researchers have found a way to cure our own body with our own blood. That's amazing. Of course, aging is another factor that works hand in hand with inflammation. And if you are listening, you know that when we age, and it can be already 20, 40, 50 years old, the body starts aching, feeling sore, stiff. You get hurt for nothing. I'm lifting this chair, or I'm closing this door, and something happens. You're like, that hurt. Also, the risk for certain illnesses gets higher. So nothing new, right? I remember this summer I was talking to my cousin who is not yet 30. And I was just, telling her and her boyfriend how on Instagram I get all these reels, like when you turn 30 and you see a person with sore or stiff knees. And I don't know, have you seen it? Like the one where there is somebody opening the oven and the door is squeaking and tries a few times and then realize that it's not the oven door, but it's the knees squeaking and making noise. That's what I'm talking about. And although I do not believe that, we can do better than having a broken body when we're 30, but this is what sedentary lifestyle is doing to us. Anyway. So my cousin laughed a lot and told me that no, she has never seen those because she is not 30 yet. So the algorithm was, of course, not showing that type of content to her. A little parenthesis. Let's say that in general, by the age of 50, the inflammation processes start rising, and even more after 60. But of course, it is different from person to person, and somehow how we have prepared for that. And this is where, for instance, Yoga Synergy supports you very much, because we are starting already to take care of the body, thinking of longevity. How can we somehow last long? What happens at a cellular level is that immune cells stop fighting off infections when we age. Other types of cells stop replicating, for instance. They stop functioning as they used to. And, interestingly enough, they start secreting inflammatory molecules that affect other cells and their functioning, so that they also stop working. Now, we have a clearer picture of what happens in our body. And the next question you might be thinking is, okay, what can we do then? Well, surprise, surprise, exercise is one of our best allies. It enhances, listen up, it enhances the DNA repair and improves cellular functioning. Even just 15 minutes a day can make the difference. So this is scientific results. This is what they have found as a cure, a solution accessible to everybody. And it can be even free. You don't have to pay for medicines. Exercise and meditation or mindful practices such as yoga are shown to help also in case of stress. In case of stress, I think that in our modern time, we all feel stress at some point or another, if not all the time. Over the past years, the stress levels worldwide have dramatically increased due to just look around, the pandemics, so the conflicts, climate change, civil unrest. I don't know about you, but just talking about it makes me anxious. Some things you should know about stress. And hey, this is not fluff talks, okay? Stress is real, and scientists are doing research on how it affects us. Turns out the stress affects our overall health, especially chronic stress, because it increases the risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity. It weakens the immune system. But what is stress actually? I often talk about this with my partner who's, let's say, so he's a very practical man, former elite athletes who learned to deal with stress in a very structured way. He sometimes really has difficulties in understanding how people can get overwhelmed by stress. Truth is, not everybody has the same tools and support network to process physical and mental stress. And it differs very much, in my experience, between women and men. I want to take a moment to talk about something truly special and close to the heart. Miele Strega, my own line of natural handmade body products. And as you know, I am passionate about moving with ease and feeling good in our bodies, and that extends to what we put on our skin. Each batch of Miele Strega products is crafted with love, for real, by me, using ingredients from my very own beehives and my darling bees, combined with the pure botanicals. Whether it's a soothing luxury whipped body butter, a nourishing lip balm, or a gentle soap, everything is designed to support your body's natural rhythm, just like the practices we explore here. If you're looking for skincare that's pure, it's intentional, and deeply connected and aligned to nature, check it out at mielestrega.com. And because you're a listener, I've got a special gift for you. Use the code SYNERGY10, spelled with Y and Y, for 10% off your first order. Now, back to our conversation. Greg J. Norman, a leading researcher on stress, defines stress as feeling like you don't have the necessary resources to meet the demand for change. Let that sink in. Feeling like you don't have the necessary resources to meet the demand for change. Think of the times you feel stressed, overwhelmed by the situation. It's because you feel that you will not be able to cope with it. You don't know how to adapt to the new situation. In these stressful moments, what happens is that our body starts producing adrenaline. And our pulse starts racing, blood pressure goes up, muscles contract because we're ready to fight the threat, and we breathe faster. And at the same time, another hormone also rises, cortisol, which makes us feel that we are in fight or flight. The fight or flight can be acute, temporary, or chronic. It is the difference between, I am in front of a challenge versus I am in a life-threatening situation. And I am in a life-threatening situation is the chronic one. So it's like the deepest sense of danger. Something that really hit me hard was that financial insecurity gives a chronic stress, together with, for instance, having a bossy boss. Have you ever felt the financial insecurity stress in your life? I have. Starting a business is not only fun because, the first years are tough. I found myself only with a few hundred crowns in my bank account, no savings and bills to pay. Although I could count on my partner for support, I first of all did not want that, of course. Proud woman here. Second of all, I was overwhelmed by worst case scenario thoughts the whole time. And what helped me in going through that was mindful exercises, in particular one that my coach Layla gave me some years ago, and I would like to share it with you because this might help. It goes like this. Whenever you feel overwhelmed by a situation, and in this case, money is not enough, I started listing the possible scenarios that could happen and a list of solutions for each of them. Also, it really helped to make the point. Do I have a roof over my head? Yes. Do I have food on my table? Yes. Do I have warm clothes? Yes. Do I have means of transportation? Yes. So again, it's like a reality check. Am I just producing a worst case scenario that is not like reality based? Is the situation as bad as I picture it? Another thing that impacted me while I was reading this article on the National Geographic was how stress affects mothers and their baby's development, and how stress in early childhood affects brain development in adulthood. This is incredibly fascinating. And I want to share with you the studies mentioned in the article by the researcher Aniko Korosi, who has conducted experiments on mice. And sorry for as much as I do not endorse this practice, this is what she studied and how she did it. So her team put a mama mouse together with her newly born pups in an environment with scarce nesting material, which is stressful for the mother because she cannot really create the nest as she is called to. Her attention is constantly drawn somewhere else because of this difficulty. And as a consequence, she is less good at taking care of her pups. After a week of that, the mother and the pups are put back into a fully comfortable cage with all the material for nesting and everything. And the mother is safe again. The pups at that time gain more weight. But when the team tested the pups for memory and learning 4 months later, those pups performed less well than those who spent the first weeks safe and well nourished. So when it came to memory and learning, they performed worse. Their brains had actually different, listen to this, like nutrient compositions. Even in humans, the team has observed that the milk from mothers who underwent a stressful period has a different fatty acids and amino acid composition compared to mothers who were in maybe a calmer, safer situation. I mean, isn't that mind-blowing how deeply stress affects us and our brain? Korosi research suggests, though, that a supplement diet could make up for the lack of nutrients in mother's milk. And this is where we start closing the circle for today's episode. Yoga and meditation are shown to help relieving anxiety, depression, even pain management. If you have listened to the previous episode, you know that yoga helps us in actually producing neurotransmitters like endorphins and serotonin that physiologically support our mood and our well-being. People have been meditating for millennia, okay, and believed it could benefit the mind in very deep ways. And, the need for Western science to have to prove it. We cannot believe it until we prove it, although we might feel it, but I have to understand why. Well, Western science is now proving this. There are several studies about what happens in the brain when we meditate. And what they have proved is that there is a reduced activation in the brain areas connected to self-awareness, self-reflection, valuing oneself. And this is what we practice in yoga, right? To be detached, to not judging situations or people in a good or bad, but just neutral. It is the practice of detaching oneself from emotions or pain or situation. And it is possible through meditation. We are able to affect the way the brain interprets the signals from the nervous system. Basically, so the brain detects the pain or input, but it is not interpreted as its own. I was talking to a dear friend today, actually, on the phone, who suffers from depression. And this friend was telling me that although over the past years has been mainly about staying at home and healing, recovering, one activity which has helped was a yoga class online once a week. This friend told me how much this actually improves the overall feeling and mood and motivation. And it has been a precious moment once a week. As we saw in the previous episode, physical activity, yoga, and mindful activities help the body produces serotonin and endorphins, responsible for suppressing or reducing pain and overall feeling good and more focused. So whenever you feel down, whenever you feel completely unmotivated to do anything, those days when you would just lay on the couch and scroll on your phone or watch some Netflix series, episode after episode after episode after episode. Remember that even just taking 15 minutes to move or practice yoga, or even easier, like put on your favorite song playlist and just dance one song, or go outside on the balcony and be in open air a little bit. Take a walk around the neighborhood. And if you feel that the scrolling is like you cannot give it up, but give yourself a signal, like just put down the phone and stand up. Physically make your body to put the phone down, stand up and move away. Put the song on and let's go. It will make you feel better. It will also, on a deeper level, give you a confidence boost. You know why? Because you did something good for yourself. You stood up for yourself. And that is about trusting yourself, or creating a trustful relationship with yourself, which is one of the pillars of trust that we might talk about in another episode. So that's a wrap for today's episode of the Synergy Podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something within you, maybe a new way of thinking, feeling, or moving. And if you love this episode, please let me know. Share it, leave a review, or connect with me on Instagram, where you will find me under the name Miele Strega, the Honey Witch. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out my yoga offerings, come to my yoga classes, and explore my handmade natural products at mielestrega.com. Remember, your body is yours, your pleasure is yours, and living pain-free is possible. It's your birthright. Until next time, move with ease and live with joy.